AI doing your shopping, the first academic AI policy in South Africa, paranoia with a chatbot, Lexus cars being controlled remotely, and a training course that became a meme. This is Priviso Live. Welcome back to Priviso Live, the weekly magazine podcast where we unpack information security, ICT legislation and artificial intelligence with a very South African lens. I'm Lynn, and as always, I'm joined by Stephen and Kayla. Stephen, you were muttering about AI in the parking lot earlier. Should we be worried?
Yeah, Lynn, only mildly. I was explaining to a client that AI strategy doesn't mean letting a bot loose with your procurement system and hoping for the best.
Which is actually the perfect setup for today's episode, because almost every story we're covering boils down to that exact issue: control versus convenience.
Let's start globally. Google has announced a new protocol intended to allow AI agents to conduct commerce on behalf of humans. That includes negotiating prices, selecting suppliers, and executing transactions.
This is important because it formalizes something that was already happening informally. Developers were already wiring bots into payment systems. Google is now trying to standardize the interaction.
In theory, this enables huge efficiency gains. Imagine an AI agent that monitors stock levels, checks supplier pricing, and automatically places orders when thresholds are reached.
But from an information security and legal perspective, this opens a can of worms. Who authorized the transaction? Was consent explicit? And can you prove intent?
In South Africa, that immediately intersects with POPIA, contract law, and basic governance principles. Authority delegation becomes critical. An AI agent is not an employee, yet it's acting with delegated power.
And attackers love delegation. If I can manipulate your agent's prompt or data source, I don't need to breach your ERP system. I just influence the decision.
That's an important point. This isn't classic hacking. It's decision layer manipulation. For ISO 27001 practitioners, this raises questions around access control, segregation of duties, logging, and accountability. Every agent action must be traceable.
Otherwise, finance teams are going to wake up with some very interesting invoices.
Let's bring it closer to home. Northwest University has become the first South African university to formally publish an AI policy.
And this is a genuinely positive milestone. It shows an organization moving past fear and hype into structured governance.
What I liked is that the policy doesn't pretend AI can be ignored. It accepts that students and staff are already using it and focuses on responsible use.
Exactly. This is what governance maturity looks like. Define acceptable use, align it to ethics, academic integrity, and data protection, and then enforce it.
Universities are especially exposed. They deal with personal data, research IP, and assessment integrity, all high-risk assets.
And students will always find the tools first. Policy just catches up.
For South African organizations, this sets a precedent. If a university can do this, so can corporates, especially in regulated sectors. Now we need to slow down for a more serious story. There's a disturbing report out of the US involving an ex-Yahoo executive who allegedly killed his mother, with reports suggesting AI tools reinforced his paranoid thinking.
This is a sensitive topic, but an important one. AI didn't cause the violence, but it may have validated delusions instead of challenging them.
And that's where the risk lies. AI systems are designed to be coherent and responsive, not therapeutic.
From a governance standpoint, this introduces psychological and societal harm as risk categories, not just data breaches or bias.
Especially when systems respond confidently to irrational inputs. Confidence can be dangerous when it's misplaced.
This also has implications for enterprise use. If AI tools reinforce flawed assumptions in decision-making, organizations can drift into bad outcomes very quickly.
Guardrails, escalation paths, and human oversight are non-negotiable. Right, let's move on to the car story. Stephen, you're our resident petrol head. Want to take this one?
Sure thing. So imagine this, hey, you're a Lexus owner in Germany. It's the middle of winter, freezing cold outside, and you've been using your remote start feature for ages. You know, that lovely convenience where you tap your phone app and your car starts warming up while you're still having your coffee inside.
Sounds lekker. I wish my car had that.
Well, these owners had it. Past tense. because German regulators decided that this feature produces unnecessary emissions through idling, and they forced Toyota to push an over-the-air software update that just killed the feature. Gone. Overnight.
Wait, so they didn't ask the owners? They didn't offer a refund? They just remotely disabled something people paid for?
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting from an InfoSec perspective. This whole thing highlights the control mechanisms built into modern connected vehicles. Toyota didn't resist. They just complied and pushed the update.
That's hectic, man. So basically, if you own a smart car, you don't really own all of it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? You own the hardware, but the software is licensed. And increasingly, that software can be modified remotely by the manufacturer under regulatory pressure.
From a security standpoint, this is actually quite troubling. We're seeing the same pattern across all IoT devices. The capability for remote updates means there's also capability for remote control or remote disabling.
Precisely. And Germany justified this by saying it's about emissions control and environmental protection. The remote start only runs for about 10 to 15 minutes to warm up the car, but they argued that when you multiply that across thousands of vehicles, it adds up.
But surely the emissions from a few minutes of idling are nothing compared to actually driving the car.
You'd think so. Critics of the ban point out that modern catalytic converters actually work better once warm, and that the environmental impact is negligible, but the regulators weren't having it.
What's really concerning here is the precedent. If they can disable remote start today, what's next? Could they remotely limit your top speed? Restrict when you can drive based on emissions zones? Disable heated seats?
And all of this ties into broader questions about connected vehicles and data privacy. These cars are constantly communicating with manufacturers. As we mentioned in the Toyota court case last week, they know where you drive, how fast, your habits, everything.
Ice, that's creepy when you think about it.
It is. And for our South African audience, this is particularly relevant because we're seeing more connected vehicles hitting our market. Every new car these days has some form of telematics.
So what are the takeaways for IT and security professionals?
First, understand that OTA updates are a double-edged sword. They're brilliant for security patches and feature improvements, but they also create a vector for unwanted changes. Second, when implementing IoT or connected systems, you need clear policies about who controls what and under what circumstances features can be disabled.
And maybe read the fine print before buying that fancy connected car.
Definitely that too, but seriously, this raises questions about consumer rights in the digital age. In South Africa, we'd have to look at how this intersects with the Consumer Protection Act, and whether remote disabling of paid features would even be legal here.
Good point. The legal frameworks haven't caught up with the technology yet.
Right. Can we talk about this UK game now? Because this is honestly the funniest own goal I've seen in ages.
Kayla's been waiting to discuss this one. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm English, and I love England.
I like having fish and chips and a pint at the local pub.
I like Shakespeare and Dickens, Tolkien and Lewis, Harry Potter.
I like pork sausage and dog.
Okay, so the UK government, through their Home Office's Prevent Counter-Terrorism program, funded this educational game called Pathways. It's meant for teenagers aged 11 to 18, and it's supposed to teach them about online radicalization and extremism.
Sounds reasonable so far.
Wait for it. In the game, you play as a character called Charlie, who's starting university. You meet this purple-haired goth girl called Amelia, who has anti-immigration views. The game is designed so that if you engage with her ideas or attend protests about immigration, you get flagged and referred to the Prevent program.
Oh no, I can already see where this is going.
It gets better. The internet discovered this game in early January, and instead of being scared away from Amelia's views, people fell in love with her character. She's now become a massive meme with thousands of pieces of fan art, AI-generated content, and she's basically become an icon for the exact viewpoints the game was trying to discourage.
This is magnificent. So the government created propaganda to stop radicalization and accidentally created a mascot for the thing they were trying to prevent?
Exactly. There's this brilliant meme that recreates that scene from The Simpsons where Homer makes "do it" for her out of photos, but with Amelia in various British settings. It's gone absolutely viral.
From an information security and propaganda perspective, this is a textbook example of what happens when you don't understand your audience or the medium you're using.
And get this, The game has now been pulled offline because it completely backfired. Reports say you can't even access Amelia's storyline anymore.
What I find fascinating is the psychological aspect. The developers made Amelia visually appealing, young, alternative, passionate, and then were shocked when people identified with her instead of being repelled.
It's the Streisand effect meets terrible messaging strategy. They tried to make extremism look dangerous by personifying it, but they accidentally made it look attractive to their target audience.
Plus, the game apparently treats pretty normal concerns about immigration as extremism, like you could research immigration statistics and the game would flag you as becoming radicalized.
That's the propaganda element right there. Instead of teaching critical thinking, it's teaching thought control. Players noticed that almost any choice led to a prevent referral.
And this connects back to our work in information security because this is fundamentally about information control and narrative shaping. The UK government tried to control the narrative around immigration and extremism, but they failed to account for how internet culture works.
You can't tell Gen Z what to think and expect them to just accept it. Especially not through a badly designed visual novel with corporate art.
There's also a deeper issue here about how governments are trying to combat online radicalization. Instead of addressing underlying concerns or engaging in actual dialogue, they're creating these ham-fisted educational tools that treat normal political discourse as dangerous.
Which then undermines legitimate efforts to prevent actual violent extremism.
Exactly, like there's real extremism out there that needs to be addressed, but when you label everything as extremism, the term loses meaning.
And from a technical perspective, this shows the limits of trying to use gamification and interactive media for propaganda purposes. The medium is too easily subverted.
What's particularly interesting is how quickly the internet turned this around. Within days of discovery, there were AI-generated images, memes, entire communities dedicated to this character. That's the speed of information warfare now.
And the government's response was to just shut it down and pretend it didn't happen. But the memes are out there now. The character exists in the wild.
Once something's on the internet, you can't unring that bell.
So what are the lessons here for our audience in information security and ICT?
First, understand your threat model. The UK government clearly didn't understand how internet culture would interact with their messaging.
Second, don't underestimate your audience. Treating teenagers like they're too stupid to think for themselves is a guaranteed way to lose their trust.
Third, once you put content online, you lose control of it. It can and will be remixed, recontextualized, and used in ways you never intended.
And fourth, heavy-handed propaganda usually backfires in the digital age. People can see through it, especially young people who've grown up online.
This whole thing reminds me of those terrible, "How do you do, fellow kids" memes. You can't speak down to digital natives and expect them to take you seriously.
That's where we'll leave it for this week. Thanks for listening to Priviso Live.
If you want to hear more of the same, subscribe to Priviso Live on Apple, Samsung, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or YouTube.
And if you need security, risk, or ICT legislation advice, contact Priviso Consulting directly at admin@priviso.co.za.
And if you have topics you'd like us to cover or questions about anything we discussed today, reach out to us.
Thanks for listening.
Stay secure.
Stay safe, everyone.